What's happened, and it's not your fault, it happens to everyone, is that your consciousness has gotten tangled up with a collection of thoughts we call the ego or self-concept. These are just thoughts. I like this. I don't like that. This happened to me. These are my parents. These are thoughts that form your identity. You're aware of these thoughts, or they wouldn't have meaning. But because you're so wrapped up in these thoughts about yourself, you end up getting lost in them. When you say I, you're actually talking about the ego, not consciousness itself. You're identifying with this mental image rather than the pure awareness that observes it all. This is serious. Really think about it. When you say, I really like this, or I don't like what you did, that's not your true self talking. That's your consciousness noticing thoughts that make up your ego, that part of you that feels like I. These thoughts have hijacked your true identity. Imagine that. Your true self is being impersonated by your ego. Your ego isn't the real you. It's just something your real self, your consciousness, is observing. But because we focus on these ego thoughts so much, we start believing they're who we are. We hand over our sense of self to this mental image we've created. If you can understand this, you're touching on one of the deepest truths there is. You are not your ego. You are not your self-concept. Even psychology gets this. When they say self-concept, they're pointing out that it's just an idea, a mental picture you hold about yourself. A concept is just something you imagine in your mind, like how you might picture a place you've never been. Say you imagine what Germany is like. You just make it up because you've never experienced it firsthand. Similarly, your self-concept is a made-up idea, something your mind created. But who's aware of this concept? The real self. Once someone asked Yogananda, a spiritual teacher, what is the ego? His answer was one simple sentence: the masquerading self. In other words, your consciousness is like an actor wearing a mask made of thoughts, pretending to be this made-up character, the ego. If you're wondering, why would consciousness do this? That's exactly what we're exploring here. There's a relationship between the real self, the consciousness, the thoughts, ego, and the mind that looks at those thoughts. Why did consciousness identify with the ego? This shift, from being centered in pure consciousness to being stuck in the thoughts of the ego, is what's often meant by the fall from the garden. One day you'll understand this deeply because you'll experience it firsthand. You might feel that pure awareness, like a sense of peace, joy, or love. Then suddenly you'll slip back into ego mode, and it feels like a struggle or even like suffering.